Raise your hand if you've ever been busy. Raise your hand if you've ever got tired and feel like you just need a couple days off. Most people would have both hands up right now. That's our world, fast-paced and income-driven. That's why we get caught up in our own lives so often, and that's why it's understandable when most people don't focus on worries that aren't their own. So what makes someone become a humanitarian? Someone whose whole life focuses on the welfare of other humans.
When you go back and you see kids that were living on the streets, kids had no structure, they had no routine, people who had nothing, they didn't have meals. When you see that all of a sudden they're waking up, they have structure, they have something to do, they have a meal in their belly, their life changes completely. They, like I said, their self-esteem changes, their self-worth, their ability to know who they are in the world and what they have the potential of becoming, to give that hope, to give that dream, and then to watch people actually use that to do good for themselves and others it's amazing. It becomes an addiction.
And with Serena's help, we'll find the meaning of life to a humanitarian.
Good morning. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Et toi? Ça va très bien. Ni hao. Hola. Ohio. Bienvenue. Wan Ying. Bienvenidos. Yo koso. And welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And each and every week, I get the amazing opportunity to come into your home and take you on a journey. The places you've never been before, to hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I get the magnificent opportunity to take you on a mental, physical, and spiritual adventure into the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry. And I know, because I understand the power of stories, I know how they can transform a person once they hear it. I know that somewhere along the line, somewhere in this journey that you and I will take together, you will hear a story that will move you. You will hear a story that reminds you of who you are. You will hear a story that will make you look at the world in a different way. And my job every week is to create a sound that resonates inside of you, with the hopes that that sound, that thing that lives inside of your heart and inside of your mind grows, and it helps you continue your journey into discovering the value of your own stories. I'm really excited about today. First of all, let me share with you, when I talk about discovering the value of your stories, this is a continuation, as I told you, this is a continuation of our celebration of Black History Month. Black History Month. Well, yes, that too, but also Women's History Month. And you can't talk about women history, and you can't talk about gemstones and precious metals and fine jewelry without talking about women. And one of the great things about gemology is how when you study gemology, literally it takes you through the whole history of the world, of mankind. And throughout that history, the one thing that is really present throughout the whole history are women. And one of the greatest things I said a couple of episodes ago, that I believe that every man, every person, but every man certainly should understand and study gemology. Because when you begin to study gemology, you begin to see things in a different way, not just the jewelry. But when you see the jewelry and you see what is it made out of, you see the composition, you see the chemical processes that take place, you begin to understand the value of it. You begin to understand the story. As I say to you each and every week, that nothing has value without a story. So as we celebrate Women's History Month, part of the reason why we have to define or designate a month to women or have International Women's Day is because in many times women's stories are not celebrated. Women have done terrific things in history, and yet the time that they've been here, the time that they spend on the planet, the time that they spend not only just having children, but all the things that women do. And as you begin to study gemology, as you begin to see not only just the gemstones themselves, but who owned the gemstones? Where did the gemstones, who was wearing the gemstones? What was the gemstones? What was the reason why men throughout the history of mankind searched for gemstones? Not for just themselves. Yes, men wore jewelry all the time. And for a long time, men wore jewelry even and gemstones even more than women. But it was always a woman's thing. Women were always the catalyst of gemology. And again, as I say to you all the time, there is a connection between women and gemstones on every level. So I wanted to do something special today, not only for Women's History Month, but because of what it means to be a woman. What does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be someone who is a woman who identifies themselves as a woman? So what I wanted to do was I wanted to share with you some of the women. So first of all, I'm looking for something at the same time, but today or yesterday was Barbara Beckley's birthday. Barbara Beckley's birthday. And Barbara Beckley, as you know, Barbara Beckley is the host. Yes, I'm putting Barbara on blast. She's sitting there saying, "Oh my God, I don't care." Barbara Beckley, who is the executive producer, the founder, the starter, the owner of the Diamond Factor Network. And Barbara and I have been friends for a long, long time. I haven't physically seen Barbara in, I don't know, 2 to 3 years. But yesterday was her birthday, March 15th. And for a long time, she told me that March 15th bothered her because March 15th is, as you know, from Shakespeare's play, is the Ives of March. And the Ives of March was supposed to be a bad thing because the Ives of March was the day that, if you don't know your I don't know, 9th grade English literature, the Ides of March was the day that Julius Caesar got assassinated. But when you look deeper into that story, Julius Caesar did get assassinated, but Cleopatra, my girl, the one that owned the diamond mines and emerald mines and was the richest woman on earth, and the one that totally turned out Julius Caesar, she warned him. She told him, "Baby, don't go. don't go. Don't go because they're going to kill you. And he was like, oh, typical man. Oh, man, don't worry about it, baby. I'm okay. I'm good. And you know what happened. So I told Barbara, if you're going to celebrate your birthday on March 15th, understand, don't align yourself with the assassination of Julius Caesar. Align yourself with with the fact that Julius Caesar had a woman in his life that tried to warn him, to try to elevate him, that tried to let him know what was good for him and what was bad for him. So I want to start out by saying happy birthday to Barbara Beckley, because Barbara Beckley has done that for me. This whole thing of Gem Hunter Stories is really because of her. I've been studying gemology for 18 years and I never knew where to put it. I never knew, other than going to, having conversations and doing things, and you don't want to walk around saying, hey, I'm an appraiser. Hey, I'm an appraiser. And there's all this information that's out there, but I never had a place to put it. And it was Barbara Beckley that said, hey, Barry, I got an idea. I'm going to start a streaming television show. You want to be a part of it? And at first I was nervous, like, oh my God, what am I going to say? It's just 15 minutes, Barry. Oh my God, 15 minutes. That seemed like forever. And now we do an hour show every week. And she has revitalized my whole concept of gemology. When I say that we're taking this journey together, we really are. I get a chance to go back and really look at gemstones and look at precious metals and then look at and reestablish my understanding of what gemstones are. So this is the month of March, and the month of March is aquamarine. And we'll talk more about aquamarine next week's show. But this week, I want to talk about just badass women. And I'm not talking about just badass women in general. I'm talking about women who have been powerful women. Powerful women. Women, when you really begin to look at gemology and look at women, you begin to see the strength and the power of women. So the reason why I'm looking like this today, some of you are like, why is he looking like a pirate? Because that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about pirates, and not just your Blackbeards or your Captain Morgans or your Black Barts. No, we're going to talk about women pirates. Because when you understand what women pirates were, you begin to understand why men pirates became so popular. Because it was always, as you've heard the saying, there's behind every great man, there's an even greater woman. Well, women pirates were that great of women, not only just with the men that they were with or involved with, but who they were themselves. Webster's defines a pirate as someone who basically steals. Let's just be real honest. They are people, sailors who are on the sea, and what they do is they steal things. They steal from ships. Anything crossed in their direction, that's what they do. And most people who were pirates, you have to understand that piracy back, especially the golden age of piracy, the 16th, 17th century, most people didn't become pirates because they said, Mom, I just want to be a pirate when I grow up. No. They became pirates because of the economic times. And what history doesn't show you is that a lot of pirates were minorities. You've heard the saying, or the terminology motley crew. Well, motley crew really speaks to a pirate ship, because pirate ships had people from all nationalities. Pirate ships in the 16th, 17th century was really the definition of democracy, because on a pirate ship, you can have people who were Native American, you can have people who were slaves, you can have people who were African, you can have Irish people, you can have people from all over the world coming together on this ship, and they had to learn how to work together. Now, most pirates were men, but there were women. There were a small minority of women who were on pirate ships. And I want you to think back what a pirate ship was. A pirate ship, think about think about the last cruise you took, or think about the last Royal Caribbean commercial that you've seen on TV, and understand that that wasn't a pirate ship. A pirate ship was a dirty, nasty, unsanitary place to be, filled with men. Usually, most pirate ships had anywhere from 100, depends on the size of the ship and the power of the pirate, the captain of the ship. Most pirate ships had anywhere between 50, and I will say 100 to 200. Sometimes pirate ships had 300 people on it. Obviously, they weren't bedding, there wasn't lavatories, there weren't fancy bathrooms. Ladies, all that nice perfume and setup that you have in your bathrooms, none of that exists in a pirate ship. So not only did you have to be a woman on a pirate ship, which was truly a male profession. In fact, there was a saying in the 16th century, 17th century, even the 18th century, that it was bad luck to have a woman on that ship, because your ship could sink, or sea monsters, all kinds of things. So if you were a woman who was forced into piracy because economically you were poor, you were broke, you were destitute, you were running away from your husband, you wanted to change your life, so you became a pirate. So a lot of women had to disguise themselves before they were able to get on a ship. And when you read that, you begin to truly understand the power of women. First of all, you have to, as a man, you have to get to the point, we as a world, men, have to understand that the equality that women want, whether it be the women's movement or hashtag Me Too, it's what they deserve. It's what they've earned throughout history. This is not just me feeling, Barry is, pro women or whatever. It's right there. It's right there in black and white. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because Barbara Beckley, my boss, and she doesn't consider my boss, but as far as I'm concerned, chain of command. She has started this network. And Barbara Beckley represents so many of the women that we're going to look at today. Because when you look at a lot of women, they're not necessarily, they don't come off as, you can still be tough and feminine. You can still be educated or elegant and kick butt. When I met Barbara Beckley years ago as a Toastmaster, Barbara was shy. Barbara, you had to pull words out of her. Barbara, okay, say it again, say it. But as the case with a lot of women, when forced or when asked or when put into a situation when they have to evolve, where they have to become more than what people see, then you begin to understand that that's not just a black woman thing or a white woman thing or a Hispanic woman thing or a Asian woman thing. That's women. That's women. So I'm going to take you through 10 women, 11 women, including Barbara Beckley, that you'll understand, like, dang. So I'm dressed like this, one, because it's my show and I can look like a pirate. And what other place chance to look like a pirate? But I want you to understand. I want you to see the world in a different way, seeing women pirates, and then you make a decision of just how unbelievable women pirates are, or women are, who happen to be pirates. So a couple of things I want to deal with. This is what pirates would actually, the skull and crossbones, or what they call the Jolly Rancher, the Jolly Rogers. The Jolly Rogers was a actual flag that pirates would use. Sometimes they would have it on all the time on their mask, and sometimes they would wait until they come up on a ship using a friendly flag, and then just before they attack, they would pull up the Jolly Rogers, and you knew you was in trouble. You knew you were in trouble. You knew. It's kind of like nowadays you come into a store and just like, this is a stick up. Even though nowadays they just shoot. But back in the day, there was some honor. So this is a stick up. This is a robbery. So this is what you would see. And pirates had different logos, different flags to represent who they were. So let's deal with the first one. So Anne de Leveux de Graff. She was actually a French pirate. She was a French pirate who was, she had, what was so amazing, she had several children. And this is another thing that you'll see. Women, if you didn't understand that women can multitask, you'll understand this once I finish it, because most of the women that we're going to talk about had children, and they were good moms. They were there. They took care of their kids. They took care of their house. They took care of their husband in a variety of different ways, okay, depending on how the husband acted. And then they went out and they were captains of pirate ships. And I want you to understand, ladies who work in male-dominated professions, or women who are working in offices that are filled with men, and you have to deal with being a woman in this profession. This has been going on for hundreds of years. This has been going on for thousands since the beginning. Piracy, as soon as men started ships, there was piracy. So Anne de Leveux de Graff was a pirate. She was a captain of a pirate ship. She didn't start out like that. She got married. Her first husband died, and then she had one child with that husband. Then she got married again, and that husband died as well. So she got with, and then actually, let me tell you how bad she is. She got married to her second husband, and her second husband was killed by, he had a duel with this other man. His last name was de Graff. So he killed Anne's second husband. Anne was upset. She was pissed. So de Graff liked Anne, because Anne, a lot of the women pirates, not only were they tough as nails, I mean, just true ass kickers. And I know this is a family show, but I got to say it. Yeah. But they were beautiful. They were feminine at the same time. And de Graff fell in love with Anne, and he insulted her by basically saying, you know, I killed your husband, right? So Anne said, really? So she had a duel with this guy to basically revenge the death of her husband, the murder of her husband. And unfortunately, you know the saying, don't come to a gunfight with a butter knife. Well, de Graff came to the duel with a knife, thinking that Anne was just, you know, he didn't really want to get in a duel with a woman because she's a woman, and I just want to cut her a little bit, just scare her. Well, Anne came with a pistol. She came, and de Graff was so impressed with her, he said, will you marry me? While she had the gun in his face, ready to shoot him. And that's how they wound up getting married, because she said, well, okay. He said, before you shoot me, can you marry me? Can I love you? Don't marry me. Don't shoot me. Marry me, and I'll bring you onto my ship. And she was like, okay, that was a good deal, because right now, you know, being a woman in the 17th century, you know, there wasn't a lot of opportunity. So she took that opportunity, married him, and they sailed the Europe, plundering and pillaging villages, and of course different ships with her husband. In fact, until her husband eventually died, and then eventually caught her. But that's what she did, and she ran the crew. A lot of the times the women would literally run the ship. The captain of the ship would direct where the ship was going to go, pick out the targets, but it was the women pirates that organized it, that made it all work together. Kind of like what happens today, kind of like what happens with this show. Oftentimes Barbara will say, I'll say, Barbara, how you do this? And she's there. So Anne was one of those, and you'll see another common theme, the expression ride or die. Yeah, well, this Anne was one of those ride or die kind of chicks. Okay, she was down for her man to the point of going to a duel to basically avenge her husband. And wind up marrying this other guy. So that was Anne, a French pirate. And I want you to understand that lots of times these women either had to hide that they were women. Think about that for a second. Women, think about all the things that women have to do. hygiene wise, everything. She had to hide the fact that she was a woman and still do all the stuff that pirates do, because on a pirate ship, you had to either you stepped up or you got kicked off. Literally, you got kicked off, you got left, you got marooned, you got thrown off the ship, you got killed if you could not be a pirate. So another common theme is that not only were women pirates, but they were lots of times even more pirates than the men that they either worked with or the men that they were in charge of. So that's Anne. Anne was our first French pirate. Oh, not our first, but one of the famous French pirates. So bonjour, Anne. So our next pirate is a very famous pirate, Mary Read. Mary Read grew up in she was an older sister of she had a half brother. Her half brother died. Now there was the father died, so they was getting money from the aunt or the grandmother, but the grandmother hated boys. She hated boys. She only loved little girl. I'm sorry. She hated little girls. She only loved boys. And so the only reason why she was giving money was because of Mary's half brother. So when the half brother died, the mother was faced with a dilemma. Like, we're not getting any more money. So what she did was she dressed Mary up as a boy. And Mary was very, very good at disguising herself as a boy. Nobody knew that she was a girl. She got with this man. Where did she move to? She moved to Bahamas. She moved to the Bahamas with her husband, who was a lawyer, and she fell in love with a very famous male pirate called Calico Jack. Jack, what's his name? Rackham. She fell in love with him, left her husband. I guess maybe he was boring or whatever else. She left her husband and sailed the 7 seas with Calico Jack. And she was bad. She was bad. She took no prisoners whatsoever. I love this photo because this is Mary kicking somebody's beep-a-doo-beep. And the last thing that she was known to do, because usually these guys would fight her thinking that she was a small man or something like this, she would kick their behinds. And just before she did them in, she would show them who she was. That like, not only did you get your butt kicked, but you got your butt kicked by a woman. Now what? Okay. So I'm thinking maybe the term "hi matey" came like that, as the guy was like "hi matey." All right. So that's what Mary Read would do. So Mary Read and Calico Jack and her partner in arms, you'll find out later on, Anne Bonny, who was like one of the most famous women pirates. They were awesome. They ruled the Caribbean. All those movies that you see about Pirates of the Caribbean, Pirates of the Caribbean with Jack Sparrow and what's his name, Johnny Depp. Mary was a part of that. Mary was a real person who was a part of that. So that's Mary Read. Mary Read was she Irish? I think she was Irish. Was she Irish? I think she was Irish. And she was known for her hair that she had to, again, tie up and let people know not who she was. So nobody knew. In fact, Calico Jack didn't know at first. She just started liking him, and eventually she let him know who she was. And he kept her secret because, it wasn't cool to have a woman on the ship. So, but eventually people started respecting her despite the fact that she was a woman. They knew that you don't mess with Mary. You don't mess with Mary. You mess with Mary at your peril. So that's Mary Read. Then we have Jacques de la Haye. Jacques de la Haye she was born in Haiti, 17th century pirate. And what she did was she became a pirate. As I tell you, lots of women, lots of people, but lots of women became pirates because something happened in their family. So for Jacques, what happened to Jacquot was her father died, and then it just left her with her um, special needs brother and her mother who was sick. So she had no other choice. She said, okay, I got to make some money. I got to bring some money in. And that's what she did. Now, and again, think about that. Think about how many women are going through a variety of different things right here in the 21st century because this is what they had to do. This is what they had to do. They didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, I want to be a pirate. But as you see, part of the strength in women is women do what they have to do. So if they got to rob and steal and kick butt for a living, I'm not saying that that's right, but that's what she had to do in order to survive. And because women will oftentimes say, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be the best at it. That's what she did. She sailed all through the Caribbean and she was just kicking butt. She was kicking butt. This is the thing. This is the thing with Jacquot. Jacquot was from Haiti, and she was mixed between French and Haitian. So she had, her skin was dark, but at the same time, she had red hair. This is not an accurate picture of her. I just wanted to show just a woman, you know, a sister of color with a sword in her hand. That should be enough. But Jacquot had really red hair, and she was so infamous. Everybody, the whole British Navy was looking for her. So what she did, and of course, she posed as a man. She posed as a man. So all they knew was that they were looking for a man with red hair. Jacquot faked her death. She faked her death. She laid low for a while, and then she came back a couple of years later. People recognized her or understood that that was Jacquot, the same guy that, like, Jacquot's a woman for real. Like, she was doing all this shit. So when she came back, the identifying feature that she had was her bright red hair. So they called her nickname was Back from the Dead Red. That was her nickname. And so she was awesome. Again, you know, eventually she died. She got shot in a gunfight protecting an island that she had discovered, or that was her hiding place, and they eventually found out where. So she got cat and killed. But that was our Jacquot from Haiti, a literally one of the women of color who were pirates. And again, because of history, because of what men do, whether it be with Cleopatra or with most of the women here that are pirates, the reason why you don't know it or it's not illustrated is because you don't know their story. You don't know their story, so therefore you don't know their value. You don't know what they have done. And once you understand someone's story, what happens? Their value increases. And I'm going to say that again and again and again. Why? Because I want you to look at your value. I want you to look at what you bring. You may, just like Jacquot, although she did what she did in the 17th century, you don't know her. But it doesn't mean that she didn't do what she did. It doesn't mean that she did not exist, and due to the time that she exists, that she was on a whole nother level. So I know I'm real excited, but we got to pay the bills. So I'll come back to you after our sponsors. All right, we are back. And as you can see, Barbara, thank you for the commercial. You see how many things women have done that, again, you didn't know. You didn't know a woman did those things. So that's what we're celebrating today, Women's History Month. So let's continue on. Let's continue on with the whole, let's go to the next slide. Okay, Sayadid Arahura. She was a pirate queen. Most of you, or some of you, have heard of the Barbary pirates. You might have heard of Barbarossa, whether it be from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. But Barbarossa was, and we'll do a whole thing on men pirates as well. But Barbarossa was like, he was the Michael Jordan of pirates. I mean, he was just awesome. People feared him. They ran the Mediterranean. And Sahadid was a queen who had in Morocco. She had a country in Morocco that she was the queen of, and she was an ally with Barbarossa. She was an ally, Barbarossa, and she ran things. She was in charge. She literally just controlled the whole western part of the Mediterranean. And she was taking on Romans, like the whole Roman Empire. In fact, the Romans tried to make a deal, a truce with her. They sent 2 emissaries to have a conversation with her. Sahadid was so bad that I guess one of the emissaries insulted her. So she just took off his head and then sent the other one home with the head back to Rome and said, tell your people no. So Rome and the Barbary pirates, or the people for the tribes of Morocco, went to war because of this woman. And no one was upset with her because she was defending. She was Muslim. And she was upset because of the infidels, the Europeans coming into her. So that's what she did. And she ruled for, I think, about 20 years. 20 years of being a badass pirate. That's what she did. And she still ran her country, had her children, and still ran her ship as a pirate queen. Next one. One of the fun things about gemology or studying history is you begin to see things that you didn't see before, and you're like, oh my God, because I mean, look at this picture. When you have a statue, when someone makes a statue of you carrying a battle axe, you know you bad. She was called Jean de Clisson, okay? Jean de Clisson. Jean de Clisson was she was also, what was she? She was from Brittany. She was from Brittany. In fact, she was called the Lioness of Brittany. And her husband, de Clisson, was executed for treason. And Jean didn't agree with it. Jean said, that's some bull, man. My husband didn't do that. So she literally, once her husband died, she took all the money that she had, she sold it. She sold all her stuff for the money, and she bought 3 warships. She bought 3 warships, and she spent the next, 10 years going up and down Europe, the coast of Europe, France, just attacking French ships. She attacked only French ships, and she literally, when she would get on the ship, she'd kill everybody on the ship. Like there was nobody. She was the lioness of Brittany. What else did she and she did it so long that she was so good at it, she retired. She did everything she did. There was nothing. The English liked her because she was taken out. This is when the England and French was going to war, which was like all the time. So the English liked her. They kind of sometimes helped her out. They supplied, sometimes they would send her on missions to take out French ships. And you got to understand, this is the 17th century. Women were not respected on really kind of any level. But yet, Jean was so bad that, and what they don't show on the other hand is she had a sword in one hand and a battle axe on the other hand. Yeah, like that. And that's what she did. She was a mother of 5. She was a mother of 5 kids. So you're talking about multitasking? Yeah. Hunt, mommy, where you going? I'm going to go kick some butt and I'll be back, baby. All right. Don't forget to take care of your brother. Okay. See you soon. That's what their conversation was. Come back, blood and everything else. Yeah. And so she retired and married a British gentleman and lived the rest of her life in peace. The Lioness of Brittany. There you go. Then we have Rachel Wall. Rachel Wall was the first, pretty much one of the only American not only, I'm sorry, there's another one, but she was one of the first American pirates, American women pirates. She she lived in Massachusetts, and she got with her husband. She married her husband, and her husband, George Wall, was a small-time pirate. So her and her husband got together with a couple other guys and said, you know what? Let's just become pirates. They bought a ship, and they just sailed up and down the East Coast of the United States, plundering and pillaging ships that were passing by. And she did a really good job. She was in control of it. Her husband gave her control of the ship, and the men respected her. Look at that picture. That was what was like. These hard men. You got to think. These were pirates. Pirates were not gentlemen at all for the most part. They were hard. They stank. They didn't brush their teeth. They funky, everything else. So you're a woman on a ship with two, and her ships were big, she had I think 150-man crew, and yet she was the baddest person on the ship. She was cold. She was so cold and so dangerous that when they eventually captured her, they hung her. She was in fact the last woman to ever be hung in the state of Massachusetts. That was Rachel Wall, a pirate. Then we have Grace O'Malley. Grace O'Malley was, or they called her Grace the Ball, because Grace the Ball, she had beautiful red hair. She was Irish. She had beautiful red hair. She was one of the few pirates that she was born into piracy. Her father was a pirate of some note. He was a chieftain. And so he raised Grace basically to be a pirate. She loved the sea, and she made her father teach her everything he knew about being a sailor. So she sailed. She loved the sea, but her father never wanted her on a pirate ship. So what she did was she cut off all her hair. That's why they called her Grace the Ball. She cut her hair really, really short and posed as a guy. Got on a ship. Once she proved herself, then people knew, oh, that's Grace. That's Grace. That's Grace. And she eventually just got up there and she fought. She fought people. She went up there. She was ruling. She gave the English a really hard time. She was so cold that one time the English were after her, because the English and the Irish had a whole history of death and destruction and war and battle and stuff. The English wanted her badly. This is when Queen Elizabeth was in charge. Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth was kind of cool with her because she was a woman, a strong woman like herself. But there was a lot of guys that didn't like her. So what happened was, one of the governor who was in charge of Ireland didn't like her at all. One, he didn't like Irish people. Two, he didn't like her because she was a woman. So the governor's brother found Grace's brother and killed him, lured him in with cattle or something like this, a cattle deal, lured her in, killed him, murdered him. Once Grace found that out, Grace turned around and found out where the governor's brother lived. In fact, that whole family that was after her, it was like the mafia. That you talk about the mafia back in the day. She was like this. She ran her ship like the mafia. So she literally went back, found the guy that killed her brother, killed him, his whole family, and his father, and took his castle for herself. That's Grace. That was Grace the Ball, and she was bad. And she had 4 kids, 2 girls and 2 boys. Yeah. That was Grace. That was who she was. So and she was beautiful. She was known. And when you go to Ireland, and I saw different monuments to this woman when I was in Ireland, I saw different monuments to her, but I never realized it's amazing to actually, again, understand the story. So here was this picture of a face, and then you understand the story of it. And now the value of who that statue I saw, now you truly understand the value of it, because that was who Grace O'Malley was. A pirate. Next, Anne Bonny. Anne Bonny was one of the pirates that a lot of people know. Anne Bonny, she again was dressed up. She was raised a lot. Her story and Mary Reed's story is very similar. Both of them were, Anne was actually even more kind of abused as a child, as a young, so she became a boy in order to deal with some of the abuse. But she was actually the daughter of an Irish, what was he? He was a lawyer. He was a lawyer. And she, again, she fell in love with Calico Jack. In fact, she was involved with Calico Jack before Mary did. In fact, when they found Mary, it was Calico Jack. Mary was in the Caribbean. After her husband died, she went to the Caribbean. So she was sailing around. Mary's ship was taken over by Calico Jack and Anne Bonny. Mary was still in costume. She was still disguised as a boy. So, of course, oftentimes pirates would replenish their crew by going onto a ship and then giving the people a choice. Either you become a pirate or you die. So they gave Mary that choice. Mary was like, hey, I was a pirate, so we cool. But she was still as a boy. Once she proved herself, they brought her on. But it was Anne that found out, you're a woman, aren't you? And she was like, yeah, don't tell nobody. And so Mary and Anne, you talk about sisterhood, they were together. So Mary, Anne, and Calico Jack was just kicking butt all through the Caribbean. All throughout the Caribbean, that's what they would do. And they had their own island. They had everything else. So they were in Jamaica, just chilling, drinking. Again, that's another thing. Imagine being on a ship, ladies. Imagine being on a ship with 100, 200 guys, and everybody was drunk because fresh water wasn't something that was on the ship. You didn't go to a tap into. So you normally drank alcohol more. That was your primary drink. So everybody was drunk all the time. So imagine being with nasty, funky, unshaven, unclean, uncouth, uneducated men who killed for and stole and killed for a living. You're a woman in that situation and you're better than all of them. So they were in Jamaica, chilling out, relaxing. And then this schooner came up, British schooner came up, found them. And literally, we're talking about, she was outnumbered 40-1. And all the men hid. They hid in the ship, just leaving Mary and Anne to fight off literally like the British Navy, or at least a schooner, 100 guys. And they was holding their own for a while, but eventually, they got taken over. And and then she was so mad, she shot into the hole that the men were hiding and killed Cumberland because she was pissed. She was like, we're pirates. How you gonna be just hiding? So much so that when they captured Anne and Mary and Jack to be hung, the last thing, now Mary and Anne and Jack were married. They were really married. The last thing Anne said to Jack, just before he got hung, they gave her special permission to go talk to your husband. And she said, had you fought like a man, you wouldn't be getting ready to be hung like a dog. I mean, that's what she said. Mary and Anne did not get hung because there was a rule back in those days called the law of the body, the law of the belly. So if you were pregnant, or if you claimed that you were pregnant, they would just delay your hanging. So that's when Anne was actually pregnant. Mary wasn't. So no, let me back up. So Mary was actually pregnant. Anne wasn't, but she played it. So they held her in prison. Eventually, nobody knows what happened to Anne. Anne kind of never got hung. There's no record of her being hung. Mary eventually, they delayed her hanging, but they kept her in jail, and she eventually died of a disease a year later. But that was who Anne and Mary were. They were the baddest pirates. When you talk about women pirates, you're talking about Anne and Mary. Okay, Anne Bonny and Mary Reed. They were pirates. Then we have next pirate. Just to let you know, this is all over the world, ladies and gentlemen. Pirates, women pirates was kicking butt all over the world. This is Sadie the Goat. This is my girl, because Sadie came from New York. Sadie came. You ever see the movie with what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio. oh my God, the something of New York, I forgot the Nights in New York, where it was talking about early 19th century New York City, which was hell, 5 corners. Mary was a part of that group. She was born in that area. They called her Mary the Goat because what Mary was, no, she was a mugger in the east side of New York. And what Mary would do she would headbutt men. She would mug men by headbutting them. And she was so careful with it because she made sure she only used the crown, which is the hardest part, the crown of her head, to headbutt them. And then she would usually have her accomplice, who was a guy, who would hit him on the head with a bat or use a slingshot, knock him out, take their money. So Anne was called a river pirate. So I'm sorry, Anne. Sadie was a river pirate. Sadie would go up and down the Hudson River, robbing farmhouses, ships that was on the way. She would often kidnap and ransom off her victims. That was Sadie the Goat. Eventually, she came back to New York because she got into a big fight with another equally powerful woman. She wasn't a pirate, but she was a badass. She got into a fight, actually lost an ear, but eventually Sadie, once she gained her reputation and everybody knew who she was, she came back, made a truce with this woman who was named Meg, and she did what she did. She did what she did, and this is who Sadie was. And Sadie had a whole crew. She had a whole crew of guys that was under her command, robbing and stealing and surviving in the 18th century. That's what they did. Sadie the Goat. Okay, love it. Love it. Sadie the Goat. And that's the amazing thing about gemology, because again, what were they stealing? The pirates stole everything, but mostly they stole diamonds, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, pearls. They stole jewelry. That's what they were for. The same thing robbers do now. That's what they're doing now. That's why you should get your jewelry appraised. Shameless commercial. If you need an appraisal, you should get it done by a professional appraisal, because there are people out there, the Sadies, the Anns, the Marys, the Sadie, who will steal your jewelry, because jewelry was valuable then. It's jewelry now. Gold is $2,000 an ounce. It's still valuable today. Okay. So, and just because it's a little woman don't mean that she won't steal your stuff. Okay. Period. All right. Pirates. If a person becomes a pirate, they're not like men pirates, women pirates. There's pirates. And then the last pirate. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I forgot about her. I love her. Ladera. She was a Viking. Vikings were like some of the original pirates way back. So Lajada was a Viking pirate. And she was what's called a shield maiden, which means that, and as you can see, she would have a sword or battle axe in one hand and a shield in another. And she was cold. She was so cold that she got married. This is the story I love about her. She got married to this guy who they were together for a while. They had about 3 or 4 kids, and she loved him and everything else. He cheated on her and left her. He left her. Okay, cool. And then he was a pirate. She was a pirate. So he left her, got his own crew, went out there. Turns out that her husband, her ex, literally got involved or got into a bad scrape with some other pirates. Like, he was ready to be killed. This other pirate crew was ready to kill him, take all this stuff. So Mary was like, "You're not gonna kill my man." I mean, even though he's a pain in the butt and I can't stand him because of what he did, but you're not gonna kill my man. So what Lajada did was what she did was she got her crew, went in there, literally rowed, sailed into this battle, saved her ex-husband. She saved her ex-husband. Got the stuff from the people that was trying to steal from her, saved her ex-husband, brought her ex-husband back home, and then she killed him, because if anybody's going to kill you, I'm going to be the one to kill you. And then the last one is Shen-Chi. Shen-Chi was the greatest pirate of all time. Shen-Chi started out as a prostitute. In fact, that's not really her name. They don't know her name. Shen was the guy she married. So Shen-Chi means the widow of Shen. She ruled China. The South China Sea was her empire for years. She took on the whole Chinese empire and literally had a crew of 1,200 ships, 80,000 men. She was so cold that the Chinese government negotiated a peace. They paid her not to take their ships, not to take their stuff. She ran it for years. And then once she started seeing the power curve shift, she switched over, made a deal with the Chinese government. Not only are you going to let me free, you're going to let all my crew members, you're going to give us some ships, and you're not going to convict us at all. And at first they were like, hell no, we're not going with that. And she said, okay, if you don't, I'm going to keep on doing it. And she raided a few more times. They eventually said, okay, all right, cool. What do we got to do? And she lived the rest of her life as a businesswoman. She ran a salt trading thing. She died at 69 years old, and she was rich. That was Shenchi. A Chinese, the greatest pirate of all time, was a man or woman, male or female, was a Chinese woman who was a prostitute who elevated herself to be the greatest pirate of all time. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to let you know, basically, this is when we celebrate Women's History Month. What we're celebrating is the strength and power of women. And take the time, and this was the picture of her from Pirates of the Caribbean. You've seen this character. These were her boys. 80,000 guys followed her. She was commander of the Red Fleet and kicked butt for years, decades. So I leave that picture of her. So what I want you to do, again, my name is Barry Mixon. I am a gemological storyteller. And what I want you to do this month is not just think about your story, but think about the stories of you as a woman. Think about all the things you've changed. Think about the things that you do every day. Think about all the men that you have elevated, Barbara Beckley. And today is your birthday, because I want you to celebrate. Whether it's your birthday or not, celebrate being a woman, celebrate all you've done, and celebrate the value of your story. Because deep inside of you, you're a pirate. You're a butt kicker. You take no prisoners. That's what it means to be a woman in the 3rd century, and that's what it means to be a woman in the 21st century. So I bid you au revoir, a bientôt, and I'll see you next week. Take care.